Hey, how's everybody doing? This is Steve Cannon of trunc.ai, and this is our AI data and Quant video series. We focused a little bit on yesterday on a little bit of technical aspects of AI, specifically on data pipelines and the teams that you use to manage those and prevent errors. Today, I want to switch it up a little bit and talk a little bit about economics. I want to discuss kind of, for those of you out there using AI and trying to make it into a business, I want to talk a little bit about what do you kind of think about in terms of how AI can be used to create businesses. And I think this is interesting for me because this is my second go round of major new technologies, which I think are incredibly fun, incredibly interesting. And I also think that this is a challenge for technologists to understand kind of the economics of this. And so I think it's important for all of us, even if you're quite technical and you want to focus on that, even if you're a PhD in some AI specialty, I think it's important to understand this. And I think the reason is because there are a number of different that it has an enormous impact on us, right? So, for example, when we think, I mean, I always go back to the web because that's where I know, I lived through it and we figured out what the answer was. We There were a number of things that it turned out to be productive to do from an economic benefit, and had a lot of economic benefits to founders and technologists. One is e-commerce, and things like Amazon are an example of that, and another one is something like advertising driven thing like search and Facebook, and then there were plenty of other services, travel initially, and then Airbnb and Uber and those kinds of things, and so there were a bunch of things like that, and then there were a bunch of things like journalism, where the technology destroyed economic value and maybe created societal value, but didn't create any significant economic value for anyone, for technologists, for people focused on the technology. So so it's important to spend your time on the things that will create, do what you want. If you want to just create societal value, that's great. But if you want to create economic value for yourself, it's important to understand this. So here's what I think about early stage technologies. I think that they come out with a prescriptive purpose. So this is what it's supposed to do. And I think that in early stages, you want to kind of downplay that. You want to really focus on what does it actually do. So, for example, AI, it was designed to kind of, LLMs are kind of designed to generate documents, right? So, fine, great. So, but I think that's not very interesting. What's interesting, I mean, from an economic perspective, it might be somewhat interesting in certain fields like banking, but I don't think there's going to be any real way for technologists to gain any advantage from that. I think what this other thing is that it does is generate code is much more interesting. So just from a perspective of kind of trying to make money off of this thing, I think the fact that it generates code is very important. Now, from what I've heard, the code isn't that great. but there may be improvements. That doesn't necessarily mean it's not worth it if you can if you can figure out how to get value out of it and use it in certain situations. I think that's going to be very, very interesting. Generating documents, not so great. I mean, the stated purpose of LLMs is really kind of more like, it's really customer service agents, right? So that's kind of what you tell the machine to optimize for, is to not be able to tell that it's not a human. So that's kind of what it's supposed to be doing, is making good salespeople or customer service agents. And interesting, like, not sure yet if that's gonna, it's not just whether it can do that, but whether it's cheaper to set that up or operate it long term than to build, to have people do it. And it appears like maybe it will, but it's not. I'm not 100% sure that creates value for technology people or for founders or for investors, right? It may, but we'll see. I think it's still, the jury's still out. But I think that there are already some things that LLMs do very, very well, like do kind of ad hoc data analytics, data science, right? I think that's just one. That may be something I'm aware of because, my feed has a lot of data scientists in it, and so I hear that you can do ad hoc, simple data science with an LLM, and if that's what you're doing, then you should do. You should figure out. That's gonna. Those are the things that are more likely to create value. The the one downside to those things is that uh, if you're not deeply embedded in an industry that has an existing customer base that has a lot of money, and does something and generates a lot of money for the business from some other source, as a technologist, you just may not be probing in the right areas. So you might be trying to be opportunistic, but you're opportunistic on things that programmers want, and that's not what you want, right? You want to be opportunistic on things that other people want, that can afford to pay, for it, and that's going to be that's going to be really interesting. So what you want to do is just, if you're a programmer in that situation, you want to be a founder, I would say the thing you want to do in AI is pick some kind of field and learn enough about it to understand what are the urgent needs in it, and see if any of those are a real good match for things that LLMs can already do, right? So, I mean, an example of this that's not LLMs is that there, like, is my former boss's boss, Thomas Petterfy, who kind of figured out that was a smart guy, a programmer, and actually even did, electronics guy, but who figured out that, who took a job trading on the Amex, and figured out that if you had a calculator that could calculate real-time options prices for you in the pits, that was hugely powerful. That was a very inexpensive tool to buy compared to to build, compared to its value, and made a lot of money, just using it, and then built a whole business on top of that, right? So he was in a space where he figured out, oh, this is, basically using programming, data science, and a lot of automation, clever automation of things, just kind of replacing paperwork and process automation, figured out how to do that, and that was hugely valuable. So if you want to be a founder and you're a technical person, you want to try spaces where people are already making lots of money and see if you can use technology to do those same things or similar things and using these technologies. And then you really want to figure out, you want to pick areas, you want to start with areas where the technology kind of basically works, right? So you don't want to just go, well, LLMs are supposed to do this and people say they'll do this. You want to actually see that it works. If you get something working that you can get working by yourself, that's what you want to pursue. So, sort of would-be entrepreneurs, that's our MO. We don't, you think about construction, think about medical services, think about healthcare, think about insurance, think about all kinds of things like that, and don't focus on the tiny little things that you do every day. Focus on these big challenging problems, and if you can do something that's like pretty close or close in many circumstances, and you kind of, you want an area where the technology works really well in the primary case, but probably has a lot of bugs in the outside areas, because that means that if the technology works perfectly for it, there'll be a lot of competitors. But if you can work out the grimy details, then that to make it work, to force it to work, right? In the edge cases where it doesn't work, then that's probably a good founder situation, where you're kind of just it's kind of difficult to make it. There's some kind of aspects of it that aren't immediately solved by the technology. So if you show it to someone and they don't criticize it, maybe it's not the one. But if I think kind of, you think about like Uber or Airbnb, like, well, that sounds dangerous. Like, it sounds dangerous for me to just go stay with someone that doesn't have any economic consequences to bad things happening to me. So then you kind of, okay, good. So this is not just an easy problem to solve. We've got to figure out how to solve that problem, and then you maybe you have a business which could create $1 billion. I'm focused on kind of giving you a kind of an overview of the way I think about things. I mean, there are a lot of more subtle things you might learn in business school, but these are kind of technology specific business school things that I think are a little bit more commonly kind of learned by experience than taught in classes, and so I'm trying to give you a feel for those. We'll probably get more technical, and we'll probably do some more technical stuff both on infrastructure and other things. But these are some kind of thoughts that I thought were kind of sufficiently different from the other two videos that might be interesting to you.